Germany, 1923. Hyperinflation has destroyed the currency. A loaf of bread costs 200 billion marks. Families burn money in their stoves because it's cheaper than firewood. Then, 1929, the Great Depression hits. Banks collapse. Factories close. By 1933, 6 million Germans are unemployed. 30% of the workforce. Families are starving in the streets. This is the Germany Adolf Hitler inherits when he takes power in January 1933, a nation economically destroyed twice. But just 6 years later, 1939, everything has changed. Germany invades Poland with 3 million soldiers, 3,000 tanks, 4,000 aircraft, the most modern military in Europe. In 6 years, this bankrupt nation built the most powerful war machine in the world. How? The answer involves a fake company, a financial wizard, and a national-scale Ponzi scheme. The MEFO bills, a shadow banking system that funded Nazi rearmament whilst hiding it from the world. By 1939, the bills were coming due, and Germany didn't have the money to pay them. So Germany had no choice but to invade its neighbors to avoid economic collapse. The Nazi economy wasn't just built on ideology, it was built on a financial scam that required constant expansion to survive. This is how Hitler paid for World War II, and why economic collapse made war inevitable. Before we dive in, imagine this. It's January 1939. You're Germany's top economist. You know the economy is about to collapse. You know Hitler's only solution is war. Do you speak up and risk your life, or stay silent and let it happen? Real people faced this exact choice. Let's start with the crisis that made this all possible. To understand how desperate Germany was, you need to see both catastrophes. First, the hyperinflation of 1923. November 1923. The peak of Weimar hyperinflation. A single US dollar is worth 4 trillion marks. Workers demanded to be paid twice a day, at lunch and at the end of their shift, because by evening their morning wages were worthless. Restaurants changed their prices whilst customers were still eating. Waiters had to climb on tables every half hour to call out new menu prices. Life insurance policies that families had paid into for decades matured into sums that couldn't buy a single postage stamp. This wasn't an economic crisis. This was economic apocalypse. The German middle class, savings, pensions, investments wiped out overnight. Germany slowly recovered. The currency stabilized. Life began to normalize. Then 1929. The Great Depression. American banks call in their loans. German businesses collapse. Unemployment explodes. By 1932, 6 million Germans are unemployed. 30% of the workforce. Families are auctioning their furniture on the street to buy food. Engineers and teachers are begging for work as laborers. The Weimar government is paralyzed. Political violence is constant. Communist and Nazi street battles are turning cities into war zones. Germany had been economically destroyed twice in 14 years. This is the environment that brings Hitler to power. In January 1933, Hitler promises to restore German greatness, to rebuild the military, to defy Versailles. But Germany is bankrupt. The Versailles Treaty limits Germany to 100,000 soldiers. No tanks, no aircraft, no submarines, no heavy artillery. And Germany has no money to build them anyway. Hitler needs to rearm massively, secretly, without anyone noticing until it's too late. And he needs to do it with an economy that's been destroyed twice. Enter Hjalmar Schacht, the man who would make it possible. Hjalmar Horace Greeley Schacht, born 1877, banker, economist, financial genius. He'd already saved Germany once. In 1923, as currency commissioner, Schacht ended the hyperinflation by creating a new currency backed by land. It worked. The Rentenmark stabilized. Schacht became a legend. March 17, 1933, Hitler appoints him president of the Reichsbank, Germany's central bank. August 1934, Schacht becomes Minister of Economics. Schacht's job: fund massive rearmament without anyone noticing, without triggering inflation, without revealing the scale of what Germany is doing. Schacht is brilliant, and he has a plan. Here's Hitler's challenge: Germany needs to build tanks, planes, ships, weapons. That means paying steel companies, arms manufacturers, chemical plants. But if the Reichsbank just prints money to pay them, two things happen. First, inflation explodes again. Germans won't tolerate that. They lived through 1923. Second, the payments show up on official Reichsbank statements. Foreign governments will see them. They'll know Germany is rearming. They'll intervene before Germany is ready. Hitler needs invisible money. Money that doesn't trigger inflation. Money that doesn't appear on official records. It creates it. In 1934, Schacht creates a company, Metallurgische Forschungsgesellschaft MBH, Metallurgical Research Company, Limited Liability, MEFO for short. On paper, it's a research consortium. 4 major German companies, Siemens, Krupp, Rheinmetall, and Gute Hoffnungsstadt, own shares in MEFO, which has a nominal capitalization of only 1 million Reichsmarks total. In reality, MEFO does nothing. It's a shell, a fake company with letterhead and a bank account. But MEFO is about to fund the largest rearmament program in history. Here's how the scheme worked. Imagine you're a German arms manufacturer in 1935. The government orders 1,000 tanks from you, but instead of paying you in Reichsmarks, they pay you in MEFO bills. These bills are IOUs, promissory notes, issued by MEFO, the fake company. They're basically checks that say MEFO promises to pay you this amount in 5 years. Now you don't want to wait 5 years. You need cash now to pay your workers and buy steel. So you take these MEFO bills to a private German bank. The bank looks at the bills. They know MEFO is backed by the Reichsbank. They know the Reichsbank will honor these bills. So the bank gives you cash, real Reichsmarks, maybe at a small discount, but cash. You're happy, you got paid. Here's where the magic happens. The private bank now holds MEFO bills. They take them to the Reichsbank. The Reichsbank converts them to cash using its money-issuing powers. But here's the critical part. These transactions never show up on the official Reichsbank balance sheet. MEFO bills are private obligations. They're not government debt. They're not Reichsbank debt. Officially, they're debts of a private research company. So when foreign governments look at Germany's finances, they don't see this massive rearmament spending. It's invisible. Between 1934 and 1938, Germany issued 12 billion Reichsmarks in MEFO bills. For context, Germany's entire national debt in 1932 was about 10 billion Reichsmarks. Germany secretly added more than its total debt in hidden obligations to fund rearmament, and nobody outside Germany knew the full scale until it was too late. By 1936, Germany had violated every military restriction of the Versailles Treaty. They had tanks, aircraft, submarines, a modern army. The Allies didn't intervene because they didn't realize how far it had gone. But there's a catch. Those MEFO bills, they come due in 5 years. The first bills were issued in 1934. They mature in 1939. And Germany doesn't have 12 billion Reichsmarks to pay them back. The clock is ticking, and that's when the Ponzi scheme comparison becomes accurate. A Ponzi scheme works like this: you promise investors high returns. You pay early investors with money from new investors. It works as long as new money keeps coming in. But eventually you run out of new investors. The scheme collapses. Everyone loses. Nazi Germany's economy worked the same way. MEFO bills were promises to pay later. Germany planned to use future economic growth to pay them off. But by 1938, Germany's economy couldn't generate enough revenue to pay the bills. The scheme needed new money. Where do you get 12 billion Reichsmarks when your economy can't produce it? You take it from someone else. March 1938. Germany annexes Austria, the Anschluss. Austria has gold reserves, foreign currency, industrial assets. Germany seizes all of it. September 1938. The Munich Agreement. Germany takes the Sudetenland from Czechoslovakia. March 1939, Germany occupies the rest of Czechoslovakia. Czechoslovakia has gold reserves. The Koda Arms Works, one of the most advanced weapons factories in Europe. Germany seizes all of it. September 1939. Germany invades Poland. Poland has agricultural production, natural resources, millions of people who can be forced into labor. Germany seizes all of it. The Nazi economy wasn't just immoral, it was structurally designed to require conquest. As one historian put it, they had to invade a couple of countries for it to work. Hjalmar Schacht saw this coming. By 1937, he's warning Hitler that the economy is overheating, that the spending is unsustainable, that they're heading for collapse. Hitler ignores him. On January 7, 1939, just weeks before the first MEFO bills come due, Schacht submits a desperate report from the Reichsbank directors. The report urges drastic curtailment of rearmament spending, reduction of expenditures, a balanced budget as the only method of preventing inflation. Hitler's response? January 20, 1939, Hitler fires Schacht as Reichsbank president. Schacht had built the machine, but he'd also built in a time bomb. And Hitler's solution was to keep the bomb from exploding by constantly feeding it. Feed it with Austria, with Czechoslovakia, with Poland, eventually with France, the Soviet Union, everywhere. The war wasn't just Hitler's ideology, it was economic necessity. By 1939, Germany had two choices: economic collapse or expansion. Hitler chose expansion. But MEFO bills weren't the only revenue stream. The Nazi economy had other sources, and they were even darker. When Germany conquered a country, they didn't just take military control, they systematically looted it. Gold reserves, foreign currency, art, industrial equipment, raw materials. In France, Germany imposed occupation costs. France had to pay Germany 400 million francs per day to occupy France. That's France paying for its own occupation. In the Soviet Union, Germany planned to extract grain, oil, minerals to feed the German war machine. The entire economic model was parasitic. Then there's slave labor. Concentration camp prisoners were used as forced labor in German factories, building weapons, manufacturing parts, mining coal. Companies like IG Farben, Siemens, Krupp used slave labor from camps. Prisoners were worked to death. When they died, they were replaced. The Nazi economy wasn't just funded by theft, it was built on slavery. This isn't just immoral, this is the economic structure of genocide. Here's another scam that shows how deep the theft went. The Volkswagen, the people's car. Germans were told they could own a car if they saved up through the Deutsche Arbeitsfront. Pay a little each month, eventually get your Volkswagen. 275 million Reichsmarks were collected from German savers. How many civilian Volkswagens were delivered during the entire Third Reich? 0. The factory was converted to military production, the Kabelwagen, a military vehicle instead of the promised people's car. German savers lost everything. They didn't get compensation until the 1960s. The Nazi economy didn't just steal from conquered enemies, it stole from its own people. Here's another scheme. In the 1920s and early 1930s, Germany borrowed huge sums from Britain, France, and the United States. The loans were supposedly to help Germany pay Versailles reparations. Germany took the money. Then Hitler stopped paying reparations in 1933. But he kept the loan money. So Germany used money borrowed from Britain and France to build the army that would invade Britain and France. When Germany invaded France in 1940, the new Vichy government forgave part of the debt. Germany got free money from its future enemies. And of course, the confiscation of Jewish property, Jewish businesses, bank accounts, homes, art, everything seized by the state, sold, used to fund the regime. This wasn't just persecution, it was systematic theft used to finance the government. Every aspect of Nazi economics was built on taking from us. So by 1939, the Nazi economy was running on MEFO bills, plunder, slave labor, and theft, and none of it was sustainable. By 1939, the Nazi economy was on the edge of collapse. MEFO bills were coming due. Germany couldn't pay them without plundering more countries. The economy was overheated. Inflation was creeping back. Shortages were appearing. Schacht had warned this would happen. He was proven right. But instead of pulling back, Germany accelerated, because pulling back meant economic collapse, unemployment, political crisis, the end of the Nazi regime. Hitler's only option was forward. This is the part most people don't understand about Nazi Germany. The war wasn't just ideology, it was economic necessity. The Nazi economy was designed to require expansion. Without conquest, it collapsed. Historian Adam Tooze wrote a book about this, The Wages of Destruction, the making and breaking of the Nazi economy. His thesis, Nazi Germany was living on borrowed time from day one. The economic model required constant warfare to survive. When Germany invaded the Soviet Union in 1941, it wasn't just about Lebensraum or racial ideology. It was about oil from the Caucasus, grain from Ukraine, resources to keep the economy from imploding. The war was the economy. The economy was the war. And when Germany started losing territory in 1943 and 44, the economic model unraveled. No more plunder. No more resources, just endless expenditure. The Nazi economy was a pyramid scheme, and like all pyramid schemes, it eventually collapsed. So let me bring this all together. How did Hitler pay for World War II? He didn't. Let me explain. The Nazi economy was built on 4 pillars. First, creative accounting. MEFO bills allowed Germany to hide 12 billion Reichsmarks in debt off the books, to rearm in secret, to build a war machine whilst the world thought Germany was still recovering. Hjalmar Schacht's genius was creating invisible money, but that money was still debt, and debt comes due. Second, plunder. Germany funded the war by stealing from everyone they conquered. Austria's gold, Czechoslovakia's weapons factories, France's occupation payments, Soviet grain, Polish labor. The Nazi economy was parasitic. It required constant new hosts to survive. Third, slavery. Concentration camp prisoners, prisoners of war, forced laborers from occupied countries, worked to death in German factories, building the weapons used to conquer more countries to create more slaves. The economic model was from genocide. Fourth, theft. Jewish property, Versailles loan defaults, cancelled reparations, even stealing from German savers through the Volkswagen scam. Every aspect of Nazi economics involved taking from others without compensation. So, was Nazi Germany a Ponzi scheme? Essentially, yes. Early investors got paid with money from later investors, but the later investors were countries, and payment was conquest. MEFO bills came due in 1939. Germany didn't have the money, so they invaded Poland. The loot from Poland funded operations in France. The loot from France funded the invasion of the Soviet Union. As long as Germany kept winning, kept taking, the scheme worked. But the moment Germany stopped expanding, the whole structure collapsed. This is why the war was inevitable. By 1939, Hitler had 2 options: expand or collapse. The Nazi economy wasn't built for peace. It was built for war. And that's how Hitler paid for World War II. With promises he couldn't keep, with money he didn't have, with resources he stole, with labor he enslaved. The Nazi war machine wasn't funded by economic strength. It was funded by a scam that required constant conquest to avoid collapse. And when the conquest stopped, the economy died with the regime. The mechanics of this economic collapse were brutal and methodical. When Germany annexed Austria in March 1938, they immediately seized 748 tons of gold from the Austrian National Bank, worth approximately 180 million Reichsmarks at the time. This wasn't war booty from conquest. This was theft dressed up as political unification. The gold went directly to funding German rearmament and temporarily staving off the MEFO crisis. Czechoslovakia's case was even more systematic. After occupation in March 1939, Germany seized not just gold reserves but the entire Koda works, producing tanks, artillery, and ammunition that would be used against France in 1940. The economic value of Czechoslovakian military production in 1939 alone was estimated at over 2 billion Reichsmarks, nearly 20% of Germany's total military budget that year. Poland's invasion in September 1939 brought not just military victory but economic exploitation on a massive scale. The General Government, as the occupied Polish territory was called, was systematically stripped of agricultural production, industrial equipment, and labor. Polish workers were forcibly transported to Germany, over 1 million by 1941, working as slave labor in factories, farms, and mines. The economic extraction from Poland helped fund the 1940 campaigns in Western Europe. This wasn't coincidental. It was the entire point. Each conquest needed to fund the next conquest, or the entire system collapsed. The Nazi economy was literally a war economy. It could only function during war. The final proof came in 1943 through 45. As Germany lost territory, first in North Africa, then Italy, then Eastern Europe, the economic foundations crumbled. By 1944, Germany was running on fumes, using slave labor and desperate resource extraction just to maintain production. The Volkswagen factory that had promised cars to German savers? By 1944, it was using concentration camp labor to build military vehicles. The MEFO bills that started this entire scheme, they'd been rolled over, refinanced, and buried under layers of wartime emergency spending. But the fundamental problem remained. Germany's economy was built on taking from others. And when there was nothing left to take, it collapsed completely. So here's the ultimate question. Could this have ended differently? Could Schacht or other economists have prevented the war by refusing to build this system? The answer reveals the darkest truth about Nazi Germany. The economic system and the ideology were inseparable. The racial ideology required conquest. Lebensraum wasn't just a slogan, it was an economic program. The military ambitions required funding that legitimate economics couldn't provide. The entire project, from the beginning, required constant expansion or total collapse. Hitler didn't stumble into war because of bad economic advice. War was the economic plan from day one. The MEFO bills were just the mechanism. Schacht built the machine. But Hitler designed what it was for. And that's the lesson. The Nazi economy wasn't a failed economic system that led to war. It was a war economy from the start, disguised as reconstruction. The collapse wasn't a failure. It was the predictable endpoint of a system designed to either conquer everything or destroy itself trying. By 1939, the question wasn't if Germany would go to war. It was only how soon before economic reality forced Hitler's hand. The MEFO bills came due, and so did history's judgment. The pyramid scheme collapsed, taking 50 million lives with it.